Alright, so what we are going to do here to blur out all the folks in camouflage outfits, these are HPD police officers, we are going to, with just this one video clip and an adjustment layer, which you can create an adjustment layer right here. And to learn more about adjustment layers, you can go on YouTube and learn more about what they do and what they're for. But in this case, this is how we're going to get our Gaussian blurs and the little circles to blur over the faces of these officers in this case. So down in your project window, click on this little, looks like a piece of paper, and it means new item, adjustment layer. We're going to say sure. We can layer this, label this if we want to. Let's call this blur for officers. All right. So this works just like a piece of material, like if it were a photo or a piece of video. Just take this, grab it, and let's put that on V2 on your second video line. All right, so now let's start blurring some faces. So on this adjustment layer, any effect that you put onto it will affect everything below it. So I've pulled up a Gaussian blur, and we're going to put that on our adjustment layer, like so. So nothing happened, we don't see anything here happening, and that's because we haven't increased the amount of blur. So we're increasing the amount of blur now, okay? And so now we wanna mask out 4 of these heads. So let's come to our Gaussian blur and click on this. This is gonna create a mask. And this, when you click it, this is the default size. So we need to make this smaller so we can put it over his head. And this is our beginning spot. Now, if you're not up on keyframing, then you'll have to learn. If you are, good. This works just like if you were adjusting position or scale, and you create keyframes to tell it, okay, I want you to be this size here, and then move down the timeline, adjust it, and tell it I want you to be at this scale in this position here, and it would create keyframes. Do the same thing with the Gaussian blur and the mask that we've created on it. Click the little stopwatch, which creates your first keyframe here, okay? It's hard to see it because it's right on the edge, but we've created a keyframe, and that identifies and tells Premiere that this is the very first place you want that mask, that cutout mask to be. Now, what I'm going to suggest in this case is he's pretty much walking in a straight line, so it shouldn't be too difficult to follow him. So let's go to the final spot where he stops walking. That's about right here. So we've got our mask clicked, and you can actually grab this, click down and hold your left mouse key, and we've now told it, when you get to this point in the video, I want this to be right here. So now let's go back and see how well it tracks with it. Pretty good. Right there it starts falling off a little bit, right? So tell you what, let's just go ahead and add a keyframe here. Let's move this, okay, to recenter it. And let's play that again. And I think that did it. Okay, so our final spot, that's where it is. So, right? Anytime you want to tweak it a little, you can. Say right here, we want it centered better, just move it here. Adds a keyframe when I do that, right? Watch right here. I'm gonna undo that. Watch right here. I'm gonna make a tweak here, and it's gonna add a keyframe there. So now it's gonna bounce around. So even right there, see how it's getting out of frame? Watch, when I move this, it's going to add a keyframe there, and it's going to tell Premiere when I'm right here in this spot, I want the mask to be there. Hopefully you get the point. Alright, so here's the beauty in this. We can do all our blurs on this one adjustment layer. All you do is, just for housekeeping, I'm going to close that mask. All we're going to do is create another ellipse. Okay? So let's go back to the beginning of our clip. Let's make this one smaller. And let's do the same with this officer. This is the very first frame of the video. You can see how we've got our blur there still. We've got a blur here, and it created a second mask over here. Okay? So let's again put our first keyframe down. So we're telling it when it sees the very first frame of this clip, this is where we want our mask to be. Okay? So again, let's just jump down to the end and let's see how we do this stuff. Let's grab this, drag it here, and let's expand it just a little bit. Increase the scale. Just grab the circles and you can do this. Alright, so now it knows that when it gets to the very end of the clip, that's where it's going to be. Let's see how this one tracks. See, this one's a little rougher, right? She falls out of there more often. So let's come back. She hits here, we need it to be a little more here, right? So let's see how we do. If we really want to be careful here, let's bring it over a little. Bring it over a little. Every time I'm moving it, it's creating a keyframe. And there you go. Alright. So now we've got two blurs. One here and one here. And we could do all four. You would just end up with 4 masks. You just add another one and add another one. I do want to show you one other thing here. With this first officer that we have the mask around, let's delete that mask I created. Okay? Let's create a new mask. Premiere has the ability to do an auto track, but it's not perfect. But I want you to see that it does exist. There's a lot of contrast between this officer's head and the background. You got the dark with the bright, so there's a lot of contrast. So Premiere is able to distinguish an item between other items around it. So same thing, I'm going to create my first keyframe, and see these keys here? These are for auto tracking. So I'm going to auto track forward. This one allows you to mask the entire length of the clip until you press stop. It's going to try to auto track where that head goes and keep that blur on top of it. This would just do one frame at a time. So I'm going to press this and let's see how well it can keep up. Oops. And you can see it's keeping up, and every time he moves, every frame, it's setting a keyframe here. But all you need to care about is the fact that is this staying on top of it. And you can see it's loosening up a little bit, right, on his head. See, it's getting close to the edge of the blur, so I'm going to press stop right there. Okay? Because look where it's at. So I'm going to go back just a few frames here, maybe about there. And I'm going to tweak this guy. Smaller. I'm not sure why it was losing placement. And let's start it here. Even though there's some keyframes over here, it's gonna erase over those. So let's start it again. It's doing that because it's erasing over the old frames. Alright. Yeah, it's not doing good here. Let's press stop. So this is what I'm talking about. It's not always perfect, the auto tracking. Let's try it again. See how it does. Now it's doing a lot better. Much better. Alright, so you get the picture. I'm going to press stop now. And even if I stop right here, right, and I jump down to the very end again, we can still go and grab that mask, bring it here, and it will still have followed the keyframe. Tweak it. I hope this helps you out. Here's our final version.